Hey, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor, which is due unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Kadash. Double honors as always to our apostles, bishops, and elders, a great Muslim who taught me this truth. And Shalom to the Lord's elect. And today's lesson, I wanted to go into faith, because pretty much the driving force behind what we're doing, it's our belief, is faith. And faith, is actually a gift given to you by Yahweh Shemiel Shai. Let me get the scripture on that. This is Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 8. It says, "For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of Yahweh Shemiel Shai, not of works, lest any man should boast." Now, we show our faith through the works. Okay, we do, we go out on the highways and byways, we do these lessons, we, keep the law to the best of our ability, and pray and do all these things because we have faith. Okay, and those are faith displaying actions, if you will. But you got to have that key. You really got to truly believe. You got to have that key ingredient within you, and it's a gift, and only it's not of ourselves. It's that grace that leads on to what salvation. That's only given by Yahweh Shemiel Shai, and it's not given to anybody. All right, and the elect are gonna be given that faith, to get through all the different trials and tribulations of our faith. Where your faith is going to be tested. When they bring out that mark of the beast, which is the microchip implant. All right. When I say mark of the beast, that's the prophecy in Revelation 13 and 16 on down. Okay, it's a major prophecy. When the rulers of this world get ready to put a microchip in everyone, because that's what they want to do. That's part of their agenda. All right. People who don't take the chip, okay, are going to be able to not be reliant. Basically, the ones who take the chip are going to be reliant on Esau's system. Okay, that's the majority of the people out here. They're going to be deceived. They're going to take the chip because it says in Revelation 13 that no man might buy or sell save he that had the chip. So you ain't going to be able to transact in society unless you have it. You ain't going to be able to go to the supermarket and buy your food. No work, no money, nothing. Okay, so your reliance for survival is going to be solely on what? Your faith in Yahweh Shemiel Shai, that the Lord's going to be able to protect you and provide for you in that time. Okay, now let's go back to what I had in Matthew's, right? Even in situations that might seem impossible, see, this the miracles of the Lord. Okay, this is what the Lord had to say on that. This is Matthew 19 and 26. "But Yahweh Shai beheld them and said unto them, with men this is impossible, but with Yahweh Shemiel Shai all things are possible." Okay, because they were talking about a rich man entering into the kingdom. Okay, and the disciples were asking, well, who can be saved then? So this is pertaining to salvation. All right, and the scriptures tell you in Proverbs, right? Let's get that. Right, this is Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5. It says, "Trust in Yahweh Shemiel Shai with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding," because you have to have faith in the Lord. The Lord said his ways are above our ways. There's things that the Lord can do in your life and the way that he can make things work that it never even cross your mind. Okay, with our compared to the Lord, our insignificant level of understanding. Anything we understand anyway that is of any matter is what's the Lord's allowed us to believe in and understand, and wisdom that is given to us to understand his word, his testimonies, this truth. It says, "In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." So the Lord is going to be the one that's going to be, we always got to acknowledge and have faith and pray that the Lord is going to be directing what's happening. That goes true all the time. Okay, but even more so as things get more chaotic, as we're entering Jacob's trouble, these are foundational things that we got to keep in our minds. Okay, that's why we do these kind of lessons. It's exhortation to the believers out there to keep the faith, to stay strong in the faith. Because the devil's gonna try and tempt you, try and get in your mind, try and mess with you. Okay, even Yahushua said to Peter that the devil wanted him. Okay, but he prayed for him that he didn't depart from the faith. His strength stayed, basically. Okay, that his faith stayed. And then it's the scripture say when he was converted, then go strengthen your brethren. So it's like we're like a unit that we constantly exhorting each other and building each other up and keeping each other strong in the faith. It says, "Be not wise in thine own eyes, fear the Lord and depart from evil." Okay, so this isn't about leaning on your own understanding. It's about leaning on the Lord. Okay, having faith. Prayer is a key. Constantly praying. And I'm gonna get a precept on that in Philippians. Right, this is Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. It says, "Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God." And we have requests. There's things that we need, we want. And the Lord knows exactly what is needed for us. Okay, and grants those requests. Okay. And sometimes it might not come in the way that you might particularly wanted it or thought that you needed it, but the Lord will bring it in the way that is right fit for that He wants it in the way that it needs to be. Okay. Like for example, Yahushua was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane for another way. Okay. He prayed 3 times and he requested it 3 times and the Lord didn't answer him. Okay. Because he had to go through that thing. He had to go through that sacrifice. All right. For the fulfillment of prophecy and for the salvation of Israel. It says, prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto Yahweh Shemel Shai. And we're going to have requests when we're in that time, okay, and you got people walk around with a chip and we ain't taking it. We're going to want to, and as it is written, we're going to, the apostles always say it, Lord, to quote what the Lord has promised, okay. In Isaiah 65, it says, "My servant shall eat." So if you're hungry and you want to eat at that time, you pray to the Lord, you'll say, "Hey, Lord, it is you, as it is written, you said, my servant shall eat," and the Lord's going to look after you, man. Okay. Now, what I want to do is, I just want to get a couple of examples in the faith chapter. Okay, Hebrews, the 11th chapter, right? We'll start from 6. This is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. It says, "But without faith, it is impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to Yahweh Shemel Shai must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him." Okay, so if you don't have the faith, you don't have that ingredient, you ain't making it, man. You ain't pleasing the Lord. It says, "By faith Noah." Now this example that is given here in Hebrews is pertinent because Noah, and he was the elect in his time, in the sense of there was, the first death. There was a destruction that was coming upon the whole world, okay, by way of water. And Noah and his 3 sons and all their wives, 8 souls were protected from that destruction, was saved. Okay, and he was prophesying, and he had faith in Yahweh Shemel Shai. He was warned. Right, this is Hebrews 11:7. It says, "By faith Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet." Okay, because we ain't seen the nukes, we ain't seen the chip on mass scale, people going to chipping stations yet, but we know that it's around the corner. We know that the technology's there. Okay, there's missile technology, there's ICBMs, there's chips out there. We know that Tesla, Neuralink, all of that. But we're going to see those prophecies come to pass eventually, okay? And we need to be protected in those times. It says, "Moved with fear," okay? Fear is what beginning of knowledge. We move with fear. "Prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world, and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. All right? Because, hey, the whole world's going to get judged, man. Okay, America being the main place of the judgment. And the ones who believe, the elect, are the ones that are going to come out on top through their faith. This is by faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out not knowing whither he went. He didn't fully, he went on faith. Okay? That showed great faith. He didn't fully understand what he just followed the instructions and obeyed and went where he went, man. Okay? By faith he sojourned in the land of promise as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles of Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Through faith also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed, and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Sarah was up in age. If you go by Esau's science, well, no, you can't, it's impossible. Well, no, Sarah could conceive, man. Okay? Why? Because nothing's impossible with Yahweh Shemiel Shai. Therefore sprang there even of one of him as good as dead, so many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the sand which is by the seashore innumerable. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. We're in this time, we're actually seeing the fruits of our faith, okay? There's going to come a day we're going to, and you have members of the elect that die in this faith, okay, and they're going to come back with the Lord, okay? But some of us are going to actually see their missiles getting shot. We're going to be in them ships looking down and seeing America on fire. We're going to be seeing people walking around chipped, mass on mass. We're going to be seeing all that. We're going to be living through that. Okay? And this whole chapter, man, it's a beautiful chapter. It goes into, faith and different examples of it in the scriptures. But that's the main point I wanted to get. And, Lord willing, which is a quick exhortational lesson. And with that, man, I'm going to say shalom. Shalom to the Lord's elect.